Today, we're going to talk about Airbnbs. Maybe you've stayed in them. Maybe you own them. Maybe you've thought about making money with them. Well, I have the master of disaster on with me today to teach you all about that. But we're going to dive a little bit into his story. We're going to dive into how he got into this revenue and how he actually started with nothing.
We own like a $7-ish million portfolio of single family homes that are all on Airbnb. And we're doing 6 figures a month now, gross revenue.
What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Naugle, and welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to talk about Airbnbs. Maybe you've stayed in them. Maybe you own them. Maybe you've thought about making money with them. Well, I have the master of disaster on with me today to teach you all about that. But we're going to dive a little bit into his story. We're going to dive into how he got into this revenue and how he actually started with nothing, got to a point where he said, holy crap, there's something, and then actually knows what retirement's going to be if he's not already retired. I mean, looking at his background, he's sitting in paradise right now. But I'm going to do a little fun thing here. Now, he told me how to say his name, and there's a proper way, and then there's the stupid American way. The American way would be Jorge Contreras, but it's actually Jorge Contreras. I probably butchered that. Jorge, how do you say your name? Let's get it straight.
Oh, pretty good. It's Jorge Contreras.
So that's way better. So
Jorge
folks, you
Contreras.
can see, I got to work on that tongue roll thing, but nonetheless, thanks for joining me today. Let's just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a real estate investor, Airbnb coach. I've been investing in real estate for 10 years. I got into the short-term rental business 5 years ago. Became financially free at 29, millionaire by 30, all that good stuff. Now I've helped over 3,000 people also begin their journey to creating financial freedom with short-term rentals and real estate investing.
That's awesome. Nice and fast. But, most people, when they hear that, they're like, bullshit. They're like, that sounds too good to be true. There's no way you became a millionaire at 30. There's no way you reached financial success. So we're going to have to kind of dissect that a little bit because, we live in a society where everybody's just negative. They're naysayers and they just want to beat down everything you just said. So let's take it back to the beginning. Like, how did all this start? And when was it? Because you're still a young guy, but where did it all begin? And why did you go this way?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the reason I created a good amount of financial success in my life in a short amount of time, I would say it's overcoming a lot of the challenges and the obstacles. And so just to kind of give people some context, by the time I was 5 years young, I attended my first funeral for one of my brothers. By the time I was 7, the doctor told my dad that if he wanted to keep living and see his youngest son, Jorgito, grow up, he needed to stop drinking alcohol. At 7, I was selling drugs with my dad. At 10, we were smuggling people over the border. At 12, my dad passed away. At 13, my mom abandoned me. And so I was in a really, really dark place. And I thought that I could only continue to live the life that with the same cards that life had dealt me. And then I had my first mentor, and I didn't even know what a mentor was back then, but this was Mr. Parcell, my 7th grade teacher. And I remember clearly the day he got on one knee at eye level as I was sitting on my desk, just destroyed. And he said that I didn't have to be a victim to my circumstances, that I didn't have to continue to live life this way, that I had the ability to alter my life, to change my life, set a new standard for my younger siblings, and that I could change the world. And here I am, 12 years old, like, wow. And I saw like light at the end of the tunnel. And so over the years, I just started to surround myself with people that just inspired me, that motivated me, because like growing up, even after my dad passed away, I would always just hang out with friends. We would ditch school, smoke weed all day, like just a lot of bad habits. I did 7th grade twice, graduated high school with 4 Fs and 1 D. Then I dropped out of college. Everybody said I was going to be a failure. Then as I started to get into my 20s, I started to attend events, Tony Robbins, The Power Within, Business Mastery, and a lot of personal development. And so I learned how to rewrite my story. And so I went from being a victim to my story to standing on my story powerfully and utilizing it as a stepping stone to then inspire other people. And that's why I have so much drive. And again, I became financially free and all these accolades and accomplishments at a young age is because of my past. I wanted something better. I didn't want to continue living life this way. And so, I retired my wife in my late 20s. I retired my mom in my late 20s. So that's a little bit of the background.
That's awesome. So listen, folks, any of you listening to this, don't give me any bullshit that you've got excuses as to why you can't do something. Like, did you just hear his story? Like, if anyone had excuses, it was you. But I think the coolest part about that is your teacher. What was his name again?
Partial 7th grade substitute teacher.
Substitute teacher. So one teacher gave him words of encouragement that led him down a path that he wasn't just the student. He's now the teacher. The student became the teacher. One person, folks, changed his life. I don't care what movie you watch. I don't care what story you hear. There's usually something like that. There's always that one person that changes the entire outcome, the entire path that one person is on. And yours was a 7th grade substitute teacher that changed the course of all that. So when you got this mentor and you got on this new path, like you landed in real estate of all places. And that just seems like not the most clear path based on your story. How did you end up in real estate? I mean, most people think of real estate as a place that you end up if you got a bunch of money or, you got money that you want to invest, you get into real estate. It's only the wealthy that get into real estate, but that's not your story.
Yeah. So I had my last job in 2007. I was a personal banker at Bank of America. So I was a guy in the cubicle setting up personal checking accounts, business checking accounts, and we used to do mortgages in-house. And I was 20 when I started that job. And by setting up people's business checking accounts, I learned about LLCs, corporations, S Corp, sole proprietor, C Corps, all the different types of business entities, their purpose, the asset protection. And it's almost like having a podcast in 2007 when no one really knew what a podcast was, because I would sit in this cubicle and every day I would sit with multiple business owners that own gasoline stations, apartment buildings, landscaping businesses, like you name it. And so it was almost like free mentorship because they told me how they started these businesses, how they got into it. Because it would take like an hour to set everything up, get all the documentation, everything that needed, all the signatures. So I was just getting essentially like free mentoring from all these entrepreneurs. And I kept seeing a lot of these like really successful real estate investors. And at the time, I didn't really even know what real estate invest was. It just seemed like this out of this world thing, like super complex, high level. I'll never be able to attain this type of thing. But as I started to, work that job for 18 months, I feel like in those 18 months, Chris, I learned more about business, finance, investing, mindset than I did in the 20 years or however many years of school, right? Because school, as you know, doesn't teach us about financial education or any of that. And so then I quit that job and I became a professional dance instructor. I started to teach Latin dance, a sensual partner dance from the Dominican Republic called bachata. And a lot of people that dance salsa, I know you know what salsa is, Chris, dance bachata. Long story short, I pioneered this dance, popularized this, started the first dance company, the first nightclub, the first festival with 3,000 attendees, ran this event for like 14 years. But there was one huge problem, right? I treated this business like a job. I only got paid when I was trading time for money, when I was physically present. And so it was a huge bottleneck. And it got to the point where I started to experience back pain. And that back pain, come to realize it was actually a herniated disc. And at the young age of 24, I got back surgery in my L5S1. And the doctor said it was a 50-50 chance I would ever walk again. So that made me want to change the way I was like making money. And, we're living in a world where money makes the world go round. And I was like, man, I got to do something different that doesn't require me to use my body so much. And that's when I started thinking about passive income and real estate. So in 2012, I started to take my profits from my dance business and I started to buy real estate. And then in 2015, I became a student at the Rich Dad Company. $35,000, coaching investment. You know how that goes.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah, within 18 months, I replaced my dance business income with passive income from real estate. And then I became a trainer at the Rich Dad Company. Then I started my own education. But that's really what led me to this path, is the idea of making money in my sleep out of necessity. Luckily, I'm 100%. My health and back has been stronger, better than ever. Zero issues whatsoever since I had the back surgery, and life is great. And I'm so blessed to be here. That's what happened, right? I ended up using my money to then recuperate my health. And it was just like this cycle of not listening to my body, overworking, teaching 14, 12-hour shifts, 12-hour days. And I traveled to over 25 countries teaching, performing on the biggest stages in the world. And, but I would come home and I was basically just living in hotels and airports. And that's the whole reason why I'm like, man, there's got to be I felt like my quality of life was just non-existent. And when I kept thinking into the future, getting married one day, having kids, I'm like, there's no way that I can, be gone on the weekends, come back in the weekdays, and then work 14 hours. Like, I'm not going to have a life. And that's really how I turned to real estate, because I felt that real estate could be that avenue where I could create time freedom and really just have options.
But what year was this that you were traveling all over, staying in hotels? Because I've been there too. I mean, when you stay in enough hotels, they just became it's so normal. Like, it's just, everything's the same. You get really bored of it. And, I've only stayed in a few Airbnbs, but it's a completely different environment, different experience. You just feel more comfortable than you do in a hotel, that sterile thing. So
yeah.
What year was this? Because Airbnb has been around, I don't know how long. I don't even know how long it's been around, but
it's like 2010, 2009.
But it was very underground then. Like, nobody really understood it. It wasn't the mainstream, where today it's the mainstream. But what year was this that you started actually looking into this model?
Yeah, definitely. So, I started with the long-term tenants in like 2014, when I started to do different development, new construction projects and things like that. And then in 2016, one of my dance students said, "Hey, Jorge, I'm making 3.5 times what I was making from long-term tenants with short-term rentals. And this is with 2 of her duplexes in Fresno, California." She said, "You got to check it out." So I was like, Airbnb, like, what is this thing? Not realizing that a year previous to that, in 2015, I stayed at my first Airbnb in Hawaii, but my friend's wife booked it and I had no idea what it was. I just knew that it was a vacation rental. Long story short, I had some leases that were ending at the end of 2016. So by March of 2017, I started my short-term rental business with 4 properties that I already own. And I too started making 3.5x what I was making from my long-term rentals. And so I started with properties that I already own. And then I learned about the arbitrage and subleasing model, which basically allowed me to rent other people's properties, get permission in writing, launch them as a short-term rental. And even though I wasn't getting the equity or the depreciation, it did help me accelerate my cash flow. And it ended up working out well, because then I took all that money from the subleasing strategy and started buying a ton of real estate. And so now we own like a $7-ish million portfolio of single family homes that are all on Airbnb. And we're doing 6 figures a month now, gross revenue from the business. And we're implementing all 3 strategies: the purchasing, the arbitrage, subleasing model. We're also managing a few other Airbnbs. The education company has just taken off, as you mentioned earlier, Chris, right? This whole industry, this innovative, disruptive technology has just taken the world by a storm, and it's really just blown up, and the timing has just been perfect.
Well, I think the timing is getting even better now, because hotels are raising their prices on all hotels. I mean, I've been staying in hotels for well over a decade, and, doing it on a regular basis. And literally just recently, now that everything's opening back up, hotels have gone up, I feel like 10 to 20% in cost. And then, there's just so much demand that it's hard to get the hotel rooms like you used to. So Airbnb and this model has just such a place in today's world. I'll never forget, I was asking you about those timeframes specifically. Me and my wife flipped a lot of houses. And I remember we had a couple back in 2014, which was kind of when we were just starting to scale, that we just couldn't get sold. And those carry costs on the hard money were killing us. So we literally heard about Airbnb, and we tried Airbnb and being I spit it out here. Woo! Some of our houses, and we did it. And I remember the challenge for us was looking at it from a management standpoint. There was so much that we had to do. I remember one family would come in, they would pay. It was all through the system. It was so easy. And then they'd leave. I'd have to send a cleaner over there. I'd have to send somebody to make sure everything was okay. We'd have to do calls with them. It was very time intensive. And I remember just thinking, there's no way I could sustain this model with our flipping businesses and all the other businesses. So how did you handle the management side? Because I think a lot of people that have long-term rentals right now are looking at this saying, is this a better way? Definitely can make more money, but at what cost, and how much management, Absolutely. And how much time does it take? So how did you manage that part of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm sure you're familiar with the book by Michael Gerber, E-Myth Revisited. And he always talks about the 3 levels of entrepreneurship, right? So you got the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. And if you're running a short-term rental business or any business as a technician, you basically do the cleaning, maintenance, communication, because if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself, and you want to keep and save that money. But then you can't scale. You become the bottleneck, and you basically are just created another 9 to 5 for yourself. Or you can be the manager, where now you manage the 3 technicians that do the cleaning, maintenance, communication, and now you're overseeing. And that's really good. Maybe once up until you get to like 7, 8 properties, you're like, whoa, now I'm overseeing like, all these teams and, all these different properties. So then the highest level, right, is that entrepreneur, also known as the visionary, where you're working on the business, not in the business. And that's where you just communicate with the manager. You communicate with one person who manages all the different properties. And so that's what we've done. We have a weekly meeting, about 25 minutes every Wednesday, with our in-house manager, who manages all the technicians, neighbor relationships, city permits, ordinances, any repairs, if we need to send a task rabbit or find someone on Yelp for a plumbing issue, whatever it is. And she basically handles everything from A to Z. And now, I could just focus on what I love, right? Which I love, for where my heart is. And I know for you too, it's the coaching, the education, inspiring, changing other people's lives. And so I fully have automated the Airbnb business, and I'm okay making, 10% less profit if I could be, 95% hands off. And that's basically the way we've done it, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And I think a lot of business owners never get out of that. I work in my business. They never actually get out to work on their business. And I know for many, many years, when I had my skateboard, snowboard shops, I was that technician. I was that guy that worked in the store. Nobody could do it better than me. Nobody could put a snowboard better than me. Nobody could tune a snowboard better or put a skateboard better. But my business, for all 16 years I owned it, I ran it like that until the very end, when the Great Recession forced me to make decisions and start working on the business, not in it. And then I put managers in charge and so on. And I did that in that business. Then I sold it. But then I got into real estate and to where I'm at today, where today, literally, I am just a visionary. I don't work in the business at all unless I choose to. I'm just working on it. And that's what you did. So folks, if you're an entrepreneur, you really have to look at this. It's the hardest thing in the world you'll ever do. I mean, coming from somebody that had to do it, you always want to be in your business. You want to be there. You're the creator. You can do it all better, but you can't scale. So sometimes the biggest problem in every business is that bottleneck, as you just described, which is the business owner themselves, because their ego has gotten in the way of them being able to scale and reach the levels that they can reach, but they got to put themselves out of the business. And that's very difficult, but you teach all this stuff, right? You have, with the Airbnb side, like there's a lot of ways to do it wrong and a lot of ways to do it right. And I want to really specifically talk, everybody understands Airbnb. You buy a property and, you just do the rentals, whether it's a weekend or everything, but you talked about the subleasing. Now I've heard a lot about this. This would be where you rent an apartment or you rent a house and then you actually Airbnb that house. A lot of landlords don't like this. There's a lot of cities like San Diego does not allow this. So you might own a condo that you're Airbnb and your neighbors will force you out, will report you to the bodies that, govern that particular thing. Like, how are you getting around that with the subleasing part?
Yeah, definitely. When we call landlords, you're basically having a sales conversation, right? And it's going to be a numbers game, just like in any real estate strategy. So you talk to 10 landlords, and from everybody you speak to, you might get 3 that say yes. And some people might hang up on you, and some people will say yes on the first try. It just really depends. I think as long as we can make them feel comfortable, usually I feel that as long as you can make them feel at ease about getting paid on time every month, respecting their property, maintaining a great relationship with the neighbors, then it's good to go. And, short-term rentals have really, Airbnb as a company has really cracked down on parties, because parties are really what's been destroying this whole opportunity. And so we're very against parties. So we have like a very strict no party, no event policy, quiet hours. We only allow a certain amount of people, no visitors allowed. So we run a really tight ship in order to make sure that the property is taken care of, no issues with the neighbors. And that way, I feel that ordinances will allow. The good thing is that even cities like San Diego, right, just to elaborate, starting in July, they have this new ordinance where they do allow short-term rentals, but they're only going to allow 1% of inventory. Unless you're on the coast, like if you're on the water, like on the sand, then they're going to allow 30%. But the good thing is, like, let's say I wanted to have 5 Airbnbs, but they only allow 1 per person. Well, I could get 1 under my name, then under my wife, then under my mom, then my brother, then my sister, then my dog. Like, you get the spiel. And so there's a lot of ways to basically just make that work. It's just about putting the permit under someone else. And that's what a lot of cities do. The city of LA is the same thing. You can only have 1 per operator because they don't want people, monopolizing. So we basically follow the ordinance. Usually when we call the cities, there's 3 possibilities: that you either don't need a permit and it's not regulated, which there is a lot of those, or you need a permit and then you need to follow certain rules, and then we do that, or they're just completely banned, like Santa Monica, New York, or any additional ones in Anaheim. They cap the permit. So we just keep expanding until it's either you don't need a permit or you need a permit. It's a numbers game when we call the landlords. But the good thing is the landlords that we do work with, we've renewed 100% of our leases. And I've had multiple of our landlords offer to sublease other properties that they own, even the neighbors' properties. They've offered to sell properties, just because once they see that we're very responsible, and if there's any minor repairs, we take care of it immediately, because we want to provide a 5-star experience for the guest that checks in the same day. So we've just figured out, like, what is it that they want? How do we, make sure that we create a win-win relationship and make it all work?
Yeah, no, that's really smart. And listen, folks, when you're hearing all this, I know you've heard of Airbnbs. I know you've seen, people like this that are making tons of money doing Airbnbs, but then you're probably saying, well, how do I get started with this? Because there's really the path where you buy the property and then you Airbnb it, but that's going to require some money out of pocket. Listen, the days of where you think you can buy a property, no money out of pocket, they're going to start to come to an end or get more and more difficult. I know there's a lot of gurus out there saying, oh, buy this property with no money out of pocket. It's getting harder. Private lenders, hard money lenders are getting, accustomed to not allowing that to ever happen, because we are at the top of the market. There's not a whole lot more room on the upside. So just be careful with that. So you got to have some money if you're going to buy the property, but you could go out and you could find somebody that will lease you their property. And make sure you have this conversation. Don't backdoor this. And I look at your face. You're like, yeah, don't do that. Don't backdoor it. And then all you're coming up with is first month's rent and security, or maybe first and last in security. Now, most of you listening to this, you have a couple $1,000 you could do that. So the smartest thing you could do in anything, I don't care if it's Airbnbs, money, or whatever else, is freaking learn. Learn how this works. Learn how the experts do it. Learn how he's doing it. I mean, how many you got? I'm just trying to look at your numbers here. How many do you have right now?
We have 18. So we own 8, sublease 7, and manage 3.
Like, listen to that. Like, what would that do to your life, folks? What if all you did is a sublease because you just don't have the money? This is that one rare opportunity where you can literally get into the real estate game, make a lot of passive income without a lot of money. But are you going to go try to do this without knowing? Hey, listen, a lot of people try to do that with their taxes, but there's only 2 types of taxpayers. There's the informed and the uninformed. And I got news for you. The informed pay a lot less in taxes than the uninformed, but the uninformed feel so good because they didn't pay a mentor or coach, or they didn't hire a professional. They did their own taxes. They saved $50, $500, whatever it is. But you know how much more they paid in taxes? 50% or more. And that's because they're uninformed. Folks, don't be uninformed. Get informed. Let's talk a little bit about how you work on the coaching side, because I know you started as a student, and it's funny, like your whole life story, like you were a student, you had that one substitute teacher that changed the course of action, you became the teacher. But then you were a student with Rich Dad. You spent $35,000 to become a student of that program. And then you became one of their coaches, which then you became the teacher of what you do today. How do people, I mean, all of you have the same opportunity, but you got to take action. So let's talk a little bit about this part.
Yeah, I think this is like so important because there's no way that like I when I got my first house in 2012, I was like, I knew how to buy a house with an FHA program, but I felt that buying a second property and beyond, going into the actual investing was like a whole other world. And I'm like, why reinvent the wheel, right? Why go through all the mistakes myself when I could just find someone who has the results and outcome that I desire, and I can go bigger, better, faster, stronger. And so when I invested in the Rich Dad program, $35,000, which was funny too, because I was like, guys, I have all the money in cash from my dance business, the nightclub, everything's cash. I went home and brought $35,000 in cash. They were like, what the heck is this guy selling drugs? I'm like, not anymore. But anyway, I've always been a big believer, Chris, in like, again, find someone who has the results and outcome that you desire and learn from them. Like now at the age of 34, like I've invested over $500,000 in just coaching, just mentors, but it's changed my life because now we have, multiple 7-figure businesses. And man, I just wouldn't have it any other way. Like, it's because like, if you say, hey, what's the reason that you are where you are today? It's like the people I've learned from. Like when I learned from, my mentors, it's like I'm extracting decades of knowledge, information that they've attained over their lifetime from like, tens or 20 or hundreds of people. And it's like in those superpower movies with like the Marvel, they take each other's powers. It's almost like that. I'm able to extract their powers and then use them myself. And so I'm just a huge believer into education. And so now like we've really niched down, right? I've learned about the power of just really niching down, becoming a big fish in a small pond. And so we really only focus on Airbnb coaching. And we teach all 3 curriculums, all 3 strategies, and we offer like group coaching. We have 6-figure coaches that do the one-on-one coaching. We have in-person masterminds, but basically everything from A to Z inside of a 12-week program.
That's fantastic. So folks, like there's just no reason not to do the coaching side, because if you don't, because you're just thinking, oh, I'll save a little money and just learn on YouTube. Sure, you can do that. Your transition to success is going to take you twice as long, if not longer, and cost you way more money. Because like he just said, like just find the people that are doing it successfully and learn from them. Follow their exact systems, their exact processes, and you will get there twice as fast. Sometimes I just want to scream at people because of the stupidity and the limited mindset people have in today's society, because everybody's trying to save a dollar. The old story of, oh, I'm going to step over a dollar to pick up a penny. That is 99% of the people out there today. They're stepping over dollars to pick up penny because you're broken. Your mindset's broken, folks. Fix your mindset and realize the path to success is just follow the successful. It is that simple. And if people wanted to learn more about what you do, I know you have free stuff that you do. So, hey, those people that don't want to, pick up the dollar, they want to pick the pennies up. You have that pathway. So talk about that.
Yeah, I got a bunch of free resources. We have a YouTube channel, the Jorge Contreras. We got a podcast and a YouTube channel. Both under Jorge Contreras, and we do episodes every week, YouTube videos every 2 weeks, content on Instagram every single day. So there's plenty of content out there that you guys can check out for free. And we're always doing free webinars and things like that. So just follow me on Instagram at the Jorge Contreras, and we can definitely connect there.
Yeah, folks, we're going to put that up in the description. I checked out his Instagram, many times before doing this podcast. We're very particular who we bring on our show now, just because we've got, hundreds of thousands of downloads. We've been doing this for a while. We can be selective. So when we're looking for people to bring on the podcast, we say no to a lot of people so that we can say yes to the right people. So the reason you're hearing about this is because he's the right person. Go to his Instagram. He's got tons of videos on there. Then dive a step deeper, get involved in his other programs, and eventually take the plunge. Get into the coaching. It'll change your life. Like, this is not going to slow down, folks. Hotels will keep making mistake after mistake after mistake, giving this industry more horsepower, more steam forward. And the best thing that could ever happen to the Airbnb industry is a fallout of the markets. And guess what, folks? If you know anything about what I talk about, that's coming. So you want to get ahead of the curve and get into this space sooner rather than later. Don't let everybody else get in and then you're just doing what you do in the stock market right now and follow all the people right off the cliff, because I know what you're doing, plowing all your money into the 401k. Why? Because that's what your parents told you to do. That's what your grandparents told you to do. Well, they were all wrong. And everybody telling you what to do today, because they're failed realities, they're failed dreams, and they're telling you that you should do the same thing as them, they're wrong too. Get on the right path. You want passive income? You don't have a lot of money? This is the way to do it. Okay. So folks, Instagram, and get around his campfire and start making it happen. Man, what else could we talk about as we kind of close up here?
Yeah, I would say for anybody out there that's listening that just wants to change your life, whether you're going through some challenges or obstacles, or maybe you're doing pretty good, but good is the enemy of great, and you want to get to the next level, I would say, number one, change your environment. Right. My mentor, our rich dad, said, Jorge, if you can't change your friends, you have to change your friends. And you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most. So you want to change your environment. I've learned that as human beings and all living organisms, animals, we've always adapted to our environment for survival. Like, you can look at the animals that have different kind of fur and different size. What they've developed that way over thousands of years in order to survive. And we are no different. We are always adapting to our environment for survival too. So if you want to get in shape, guess what? Hang out with 5 people that are working out, eating well. If you want to be financially successful, surround yourself with people that are doing that. I have a community. Chris has a community of successful people doing well with money in their lives and in every aspect of life. And all you have to do is change your environment and you'll change your life.
I love that, folks. So you heard it right here. Make sure you check this stuff out. We'll put all the links in the description. And I got one final question for you before we wrap. During this journey, and it's been a crazy one. I mean, from all the struggles you went through as a kid, straight up to that 7th grade teacher, straight into Rich Dad, straight into now you coaching over 3,000 people. What has been your single most difficult inner struggle that you've had in this entire journey?
That's a great question. They say new levels, new devils. So at every level of like a new level of success financially in business, there's been a lot of times where I would question myself, like, man, do I deserve this? Right. And then I realized, like, why am I having these conversations of whether or not I deserve this, or the whole imposter syndrome? Like, like maybe someone's going to find out that I'm not really, successful. Right. And then I realized that all these conversations just have to do with my limited beliefs that were embedded as a kid, like not having people there, no one there to believe in me, to support me. And so a lot of times as you keep climbing the ladder of different levels of success, whatever that limiting belief is at your core will always start to like haunt you at every single level. But new levels. And at every level that you make your ceiling, your floor, you're going to experience breakthroughs, and you can't have the outcome without the breakthrough. Just be ready to just continuously experience new breakthroughs, because guess what? The breakthroughs, the challenges, the obstacles will never go away. It's like, I always say that what's more important than the money and the success is who you become in the process, the personal development journey. And personal development and personal growth is like an onion. It never ends. All you do is keep peeling back the layers over and over again.
Jorge, that is the best answer anyone has ever given me for that. So congratulations, by far the best answer ever. So we're going to wrap on that, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. Go out there, learn, get around the campfire, get on his Instagram, get in his trainings, get in his coaching, stop making excuses for why you're not where you want to be, and just take action, folks. It's not the knowledge you just got. It's the fucking action you take on the knowledge. That's what makes you successful. Jorge, thank you so much for your time. And every one of you watching, join us for the next episode. Until then, go out there and make your life what it should be. We'll see you soon.